Welcome back to binding vote season, everybody. On June 2nd, the BCDC had a big staff meeting. They had a chance to question the A's. They had a chance to question the port. They had a chance to question the mayor. Everybody got to speak. Everyone got to weigh in publicly, and the commissioners got to talk. What did it all mean? Well, not a whole lot, really, because what really matters is that June 30th vote, that binding vote. They need 2/3 vote from the BCDC Commissioners in order to keep the ball rolling on the A's ballpark proposal. If they don't get that 2/3 vote on June 30th, the project is basically dead in the water. So it is very important. I'll tell you what I think about this BCDC meeting. I'll tell you what I think will happen on that vote on June 30th, and we'll get into everything, including the timeline. We're bringing it back. Remember the timeline? There we are. Right there. That's the next stop, June 30th. I got to get better at doing that. So, my impressions of that meeting, there were some things that stood out to me, and I will start with the fact that the A's, the port, the mayor, they made their case. The commissioners had their very first chance to really question everybody involved in the project. Until then, it's really been like they were given information, they asked for more information, they were provided updated information, lots of things like that. This was the chance for them to really question people. And my impressions were that it went really well. Now, the reason I say that is because when the questioning began, the questions weren't that hard, they weren't that pointed. There wasn't a whole lot of pushback. I actually expected the questions to be pretty tough. I thought that that would be the chance where it would be kind of like a firing line. If anyone had major objections, they would have really dug in those moments. I thought the questioning was pretty light, to be honest. Like, I was sitting there watching the meeting and I could have answered some of the questions. And again, I'm just sitting here with makeup on and a camera. I don't do anything important. And I knew the answers. So to me, it really seemed like that was something that was a good sign heading into June 30th. Definitely a good sign. Some things that are really important to note, in my opinion, when you look at this project, and some things that really stuck with the commissioners are, if they leave this property exactly how it is, untouched, no ballpark, no housing, nothing, it's going to be an issue. It's going to languish for a while because this really isn't a shipping hub. The previous shipping tenants actually sued to get out of their spot there at Howard Terminal. They didn't want to be there. They moved on to the outer harbor, which is a lot deeper and better for shipping. So right now it is truck parking, it is container storage, chassis storage, and it's not really the best use of that spot. If they do nothing with it, if they leave it completely untouched, it's going to be susceptible to sea level rise. The water's going to rise. It's a flood zone. Also toxic mitigation. Any of the toxins in the ground there can rise up and spread. That would be very bad. Howard Terminal's ballpark proposal and housing proposal actually solves all those issues. I think that resonated with the BCDC. Also, if you look at the mission statement of the BCDC commissioners, what they want is no bay fill. They don't want to do anything that's going to take bay out, land in. What the Howard Terminal project actually does is it might create more bay, because they're talking about adding that turning basin, which is going to actually possibly add 10 acres of bay. They're going to slice it right out of Howard Terminal so the larger ships have a way to turn. That's going to actually add bay. So there's one, check. Also, another aspect that is pretty important when you look at this thing is it's going to deliver public access back to the shoreline. If you look at what happened in Brooklyn Basin, they removed the port priority use area designation, and it's actually been a huge success. Public now has more access to the waterfront. Oakland does not have much public access to the waterfront. So I think that's another major thing they're going to consider, is it delivers public access. It's going to expand the bay trails. It gives people the ability to get to the waterfront. Right now, you cannot do that at Howard Terminal unless you're parking a truck. If that's the case, drive right up, park on the waterfront. Not the best use. What you can do, though, however, is move the truck parking, move the container storage, move the longshore training elsewhere in the port, and then you're all good. So that is why I think that if you look at what's going to happen on June 30th, I think they're going to vote in favor of it. I think they're going to get the 2/3 vote. The reason I say that is that meeting was somewhat of an indication that The questions weren't that tough. They weren't that pointed. The commissioners will likely go in favor of what the staff recommendation is. And in May, the BCDC staff put out a recommendation in favor of removing the port priority use area designation from Howard Terminal. If the staff is recommending it, it's a pretty easy thing to do. You vote for what the recommendation states. Now, you do remember the SPAC, the Seaport Advisory Committee, actually narrowly recommended against removing port priority use. The port provided more information, and then the staff looked it over and changed that recommendation. The SPAC still recommended against it, but the staff overall now recommends removing port priority use area designation from Howard Terminal. What does that mean? What does that mean? It means the A's can build a stadium and a ballpark there without removing port priority use area. Nothing can happen there. That is why this vote on June 30th is very important. Although somewhat procedural, it is a step that needs to be done, because if it isn't, they can't do anything. Project dead. Probably Viva Las Vegas at that point. So that would be a bad thing for the A's. Now let's see. What do I think will happen next? I think on June 30th, they will vote yes. I think that will be a huge win for the A's because it is a major binding vote. It does not mean, however, that the A's are staying in Oakland. That is not a sure thing yet. If they get the vote in favor of removing port priority use area designation on June 30th, it's a huge step in the right direction, but it isn't the end game. They still need to come to terms with the city of Oakland on a development agreement and a community benefits agreement. Those things are massively important. They are still, as I'm being told, actively being negotiated every day. Not done yet. Until it's done, they can't take a vote. You hear the A's saying they want to vote this summer before recess. I don't see it happening. Yet again, I keep saying that because people keep telling me I'm saying otherwise. I am never saying otherwise. I do not see a vote happening before recess in July, simply because they don't have an agreement yet. Once they have an agreement, then they can have a vote. That's why I think that vote will likely come in September after City Council comes back from summer recess. It has to happen in September because, again, if I pull up my timeline again, Election Day is in November. It's got to get done before that. Because at the end of the year, after the elections, when the calendar flips, you're going to have new city council members and a new mayor. Those things throw a ton of uncertainty into this project. So it has to be done soon. And they also have to come to that agreement soon because they need time to go over the terms of the agreement. Everyone needs to be able to look over everything in that agreement. So again, June 30th, massive. That is a huge vote. It could make or break the A's chances of staying in Oakland. I do think, however, it will go the A's way. There are no indications otherwise at this point, but 2/3 is a pretty high margin. You have to really get everybody in there because otherwise it's no bueno. Now, a couple things did happen in that meeting. The chair, Wasserman, he was asked to recuse himself from the proceedings because he used to represent the A's as a lawyer. He says he no longer represents the A's. He says he's no longer planning to recuse himself. He is going to vote. He will likely be a yes vote. Another person that represents the Bay Area Council was asked to recuse himself. He did. They are going to put an alternate in their place, and that is that. Now, these people are appointed by the governor. And the governor and the people politically, I believe, want to see this thing done. So the political will is there. That's why I feel pretty good about the June 30th vote. But again, I'm not saying that means everything is good. I'm not saying that means this thing's going to get built. Now, one last thing to look at here, when you look at what the BCDC is talking about, in addition to preventing bay fill, in addition to delivering public access to the waterfront, there are 3 growth scenarios they're looking at: slow, moderate, and strong. Now, under slow or moderate growth scenarios, the port is going to have room to grow and expand and continue to thrive because that's what everyone wants. We need a thriving port in Oakland. No one in their right mind is ever going to choose the A's over the Port of Oakland. The Port of Oakland is too important. It is too big of an economic generator. It is too critical for jobs and everything in this region. They would never do anything that would harm the port. So if you look at slow and moderate growth scenarios, that would mean that Howard Terminal's acreage can be removed and given to the project, and the port can still have room to grow and thrive. Now, one point I'd like to make, even if strong growth is indicated, which it isn't by the numbers, you don't really want strong growth in the port, because strong growth would mean way too much activity there. It'd be a lot of traffic, a lot of congestion, a lot of pollution, all the things that the port has worked very hard to fight against. The port wants to be a good neighbor. They don't want to be jam-packing everything, contaminating everything, polluting everything, overpopulating everything in that area. They want to grow responsibly. That is what they're currently doing. And please note that these are all growth scenarios. That means the port is going to continue to grow under all projections, which is why I don't understand why people say that if they remove the 50 or 40, if they slice out the turning basin acres from Howard Terminal, it's going to kill the port. It's not, simply put. The port themselves say they have plenty of room to move those ancillary uses once they spell it out completely. Hopefully people will feel better about that. But if you look at the situation, the port has room to grow. It is designed for this project to diversify their portfolio. The port is going to make a ton of money on Howard Terminal. The A's are not getting that land for free, people. It's going to cost them hundreds of millions of dollars over a 66-year lease. That is in the exclusive negotiating agreement. So, if they get that 630 vote, it's not the end, but it's a good step in the right direction. The A's will still have to work on permitting and other things with the BCDC. This is just a vote to remove port priority use. It is not a vote for the BCDC to say, 100% sign off, everything good, let's go. Development agreement, community benefits agreement still need to happen. A lot more has to occur before this thing is a wrap, and shovels, shovel talk, shovels are in the ground. That's it. That's your binding vote season update. I'll be back with more closer to the June 30th vote. Stay involved, stay active. Shout out to those A's fans, by the way. They made custom shirts, and they actually showed up to the BCDC meeting on June 2nd. That was pretty cool. Pretty cool. Support is key right now if you want to get this thing done. Speak up. This is your chance. If you live in California, if you're for or against this project, now's your chance to speak up, because June 30th is a big binding vote season.